Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavanda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare 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 Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaur Hari Bol, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Thank you, Abhay Prabhu, for the nice kirtan. Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my obeisances. All
Hare
glories
Krishna.
to you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jai Subhadra is going to say a few words.
No, she's not. I'm going to introduce myself.
Okay, Maharaj. Jai Subhadra.
And the reason for that is I'm embarrassed. Somebody's in the waiting room. I'm embarrassed by these long introductions. I appreciate the sentiment of the devotees, but in my case, a bird flies in the sky up to its ability. So let's say something real about me. So here we go. I first met the devotees and met Srila Prabhupada in 1969 in California. And I moved into the temple in 1970, Los Angeles temple. I became a temple president in Ann Arbor, Michigan. We had a nice little preaching center, then in Detroit. And then I was the president here in San Diego for about 16 years. If you wonder why I have some gray hairs, every one of them has a name on it. I can tell you where I got it. So then I've been a member of the GBC, ISKCON's governing body, since 1987, 86 or 87, I forget. And I took sannyas by the mercy of the devotees in 2014. So that's my history. The sutra is, I was a fool and a rascal until I met Srila Prabhupada. That's the actual situation, but that's enough of an introduction. Okay?
Okay, Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So do I sail forth?
Yes, please.
Hare Krishna. Vanchakapadiubhasya kripasanbhevachā patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Bhastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitanamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachani Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paskachada Satarani Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidweta Gadara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrindi Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. By the way, who was the devotee leading kirtan playing the harmonium?
That's
he sings very nicely.
Okay, Maharaj.
Who was it?
That's Abhay Prabhu. Can you please unmute and introduce yourself to Maharaj quickly?
Oh, you were playing. Yeah, you sing very nicely. Okay, so, and not just, anyway, I don't want to get off the track. I should say something about 4th of July because it's American Independence Day. So I'll be quick. Prabhupada was in Washington, D.C. in 1976. He was there for the, in the nation's capital. Oh, my screen is froze up. Let's try this. Let's see what happens. Okay, did that recover? Okay, so and there was about 600, 700 devotees in Washington, D.C. And Prabhupada gave a great lecture, and that's what I'm going to talk. Prabhupada called it the Declaration of Dependence, because he was seeing everywhere, the Declaration of Independence. Prabhupada said, what is this independence? Adi Bautik, Adi Daivik, Adi Atmik, where misery is caused by other living entities, misery is caused by, the mind and the body, misery is caused by material nature. Where's the question of independence? And Prabhupada went on to say that to recognize our dependence, because they think, to be dependent is somehow or other a psychological weakness, and we're the American action figures and we're independent. But that's just all nonsense, because we're not independent of anything. And Prabhupada went on to say, to admit that we're dependent on air, is that a sign of weakness? Suppose I tell you, Badrinarayan Swami, I am not going to depend on air. And I hold my breath. What will you think? You think that I'm a bold, intelligent individual? You think the guy's lost his mind? And okay, fine. I think, what are they, the deep sea divers, those free divers? Maybe they can hold their breath 6 minutes. Let's give them 8 minutes. So where's the question of independence? Are we independent of food? We're independent of sunlight. We're not independent of anything. So Prabhupada said it's a question of recognizing our dependence. Prabhupada said, you think you're sitting on the floor? I am sitting in the hand of Krishna. So that is the symptom of it. That's intelligence, that we are actually, everything is going on by the mercy of Krishna, and that we're completely dependent of Krishna. And the freedom we're looking for, Prabhupada says in the Bhagavatam, that everyone is looking for the unfettered freedom of the soul. They're not looking for financial independence. Okay, that's going to make me free. Or, the Americans got free from the British. Now that made us free. Or the British got free from the European Union at Brexit. Are they free? So none of it makes any sense. No one's free. They're being kicked like a football by the modes of nature. So the real freedom, Prabhupada calls it the regulative principles of freedom, which appears to be an oxymoron. You're saying regulative principles, and then you're saying of freedom. So if I have principles, how am I free? I had when I was a kid growing up, there was a guy next to me, my house next door, and he was studying piano. And he would play scales all day long. Da 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 da. We would hear it. We'd all be out there fooling around playing baseball or football or whatever it was on the street. And we'd think, look at this knucklehead. He's, playing, But to this day, he's a famous concert pianist. And by learning those, in order to become spontaneous, he had to be literally imbibe the piano. It had to be like an extension of his own body. So by that regulative principles, he actually, when we learn to control the mind, control the senses, all of that, then that's actual freedom. So Prabhupada's simple point was that forget this declaration of independence. We should declare our declaration of dependence, that we're all dependent on Krishna. And real freedom means to control the mind and control the senses. Then we'll taste the unfettered freedom of the soul. Then we're actually free. Real freedom doesn't depend on any condition. So there's something about Independence Day. By the way, Prabhupada was speaking in the temple room in Washington, D.C. That's when he gave this talk. And there were some life members and some, friends of the temple. So Prabhupada stayed back in the temple room and they were asking him questions, a little talking, right? By the time Prabhupada came out of the temple room, there was this 500, 600 devotees sitting on the lawn taking prasadam. And we all know the scene, that, after a big festival day and everyone's taking nice prasadam, it's really a blissful scene, So the devotees didn't see that Prabhupada was out there, but Prabhupada could see the whole thing. And Prabhupada turned, I was standing there next to him, and Prabhupada turned and saw this scene of 500, 600 devotees having, like right out of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And then Prabhupada said, I don't think I would have a single disciple if I had not introduced prasadam. So that's Washington, D.C. and independence. Prabhupada, now we have everything. We have so many temples and so many devotees and so much facility and all these books and beautiful deities. But the odds of an elderly gentleman, not in the best of health, with no support and no money, coming to America, and you don't have, everybody in those days, you were white, Anglo-Saxon, Christian. That was America. And if you weren't male, white, Anglo-Saxon, Christian, you really were just a second-class citizen. That was America. And you'd tell people you're a vegetarian, they'd say, oh, is that a political party? They think like libertarian, vegetarian. I mean, they had no idea about any of these karma, nothing, Prabhu, nothing. So for Prabhupada to come all alone is an amazing thing. So they asked Prabhupada, you can hear it, it's a newspaper reporter asks him, why did you come to America? And Prabhupada said, well, some of my godbrothers, they went to England and they failed. Some of my godbrothers, they went to Sweden and they failed. Another one of my godbrothers went to Germany and he failed. So Prabhupada said, I thought, as long as I'm going to fail, I might as well fail in a new place. That was Prabhupada's humility. But actually, Prabhupada was a great, Senapata Bhakta. He was a great general, a great strategist in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's army. And he saw that the whole world was following America. Whatever America said or did, that was the American, whatever it was. So Prabhupada thought, if I can turn some Americans, then I can turn the world. And that's exactly what happened. Prabhupada said he was on a walk in Calcutta, and there's the Victoria Memorial, and it's big. You can Google it. I don't know how tall it is, but it's like 15, 18 stories tall. It's a big building, and modeled after Taj Mahal with some English, filigree. And it was done, whatever it was for the Queen Victoria's 50th anniversary or something, whatever. And Prabhupada was a young boy when they were building it. And it was all bamboo scaffolding. You've seen anybody who's been to developing nations, they don't have these big steel scaffolds. It's all bamboo lashed together. And those things are creaking and shifting in the wind. I mean, it's pretty far out. So Prabhupada told the devotees, he said that when they were building it, he climbed to the very top. He didn't say how old he was, but let's say 8, 10, 12, something like that. He climbed 18 stories up this, bamboo scaffolding. So the devotee said, Prabhupada, you were very brave. And Prabhupada said, and I am still brave. Otherwise, how have I come to your country all alone? So, of course, we're jumping ahead a bit, but Madhuvisa, one of the early heroes of our society, Madhuvisa Prabhu, was in San Francisco and a powerful Harinam devotee, made so many devotees. He was like Vishnujan's brother, went to Australia, opened up all of Australia. I mean, just one of the real heroes of our society. And Prabhupada was very fond of him. But he told me, he said to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, it says in the Gita that one who for all their reactions to sinful deeds are eradicated. So sinful deed, reaction, eradicated. And for many lifetimes has performed pious acts. Such a person can take to devotional service. So Prabhupada said, so Madhuvisa said, but Prabhupada, I was sinful to the day I met you. I mean, what to speak of eradication of sinful acts, and what to speak of pious acts, I was sinful to the day I met you. He said, how is it possible that I took to devotional service? And Prabhupada's response was, I have created your good fortune. By that 1/11th of a second of a pure devotee, Prabhupada created our good fortune. And then Prabhupada said, and all I ask of you, because if someone delivers you from this world, from, I was describing about independence and freedom, what kind of debt do we have? Prabhupada said, when you try to repay the spiritual master, every time you try to repay him, you realize how much more you are in debt. It's ever increasing. So Prabhupada said that all I ask, I've created your good fortune. All I ask is you go and create good fortune for others. So that's our mission. As we've received the happiness of Krishna consciousness ever increasing, all the previous acharyas, all our spiritual master, all Srila Prabhupada asks is we go and create good fortune for others. I was in the room. Prabhupada said, actually, I've created the structure. All you have to do is decorate it. Then Prabhupada said, actually, He said, I've created the decorations. All you have to do is go and hang them. So Prabhupada's created the structure and told us to decorate it, and he's given us the decorations. We have everything. Ratha Yatra, Sunday Feast, Harinam, book distribution. All we have to do is just follow it, and it works. So Prabhupada was walking in Shevet Hills. This is in Los Angeles, morning walk. And usually Prabhupada walked clockwise around the park. And this particular day, for some reason, Prabhupada walked counterclockwise. And Prajapati, you can hear him on the tape. Prajapati, who Prabhupada liked, he had a real, he was an actor, Shakespearean actor, and he had that voice. And he said, I say, Srila Prabhupada, when we walk in the park in a different direction and see all the objects from a different angle, it seems like a brand new park. And you can hear on the tape, Prabhupada just starts laughing. Prabhupada can't believe it. And Prabhupada makes the point that this is material life. It is simply eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. But we do it as a hog, we do it as a dog, we do it as you know, on Park Avenue, we do it as a demigod, but it's the same thing. We just look at it with a different body, a different angle, but that's all it is. It's the same thing we've done again and again and again. We were in Los Angeles, and the artists were there painting. And one of the devotees said, Prabhupada, in this picture, Krishna looks like this. But in this other picture, Krishna looks like that. And in another picture, Krishna looks completely different. He looks like this. Prabhupada said, don't worry. When you get to Goloka, you'll recognize him. Devotees asked Prabhupada so many different questions. They painted Krishna one time with big muscles. You know, he was lifting Govardhan Hill and, you know, big muscles, right? Prabhupada saw, he was walking in Detroit on Belle Isle. And Prabhupada, there was a big statue of Atlas. You know, Atlas is the Greek god or Roman god, and he's holding up the earth, you know, and he's really sweating and struggling. So Prabhupada saw the statue. Prabhupada said, what is this? And he got off the path and he walked over to check it out. And the devotee said, well, this is a Roman or Greek god Atlas, and he's holding up the universe, and he's really, the planet Earth, and he's really struggling. Prabhupada said, we are not interested in this kind of Krishna, this kind of God. The God has to, you know, becomes God or lifts weight, or it's a struggle. So, and the same thing with the painters. Prabhupada said, actually, you should paint Krishna. He's a little fat for Mother Yasoda's butter. You know, he's muck and chore. He's muck and lol. You know, he doesn't have to, you know. So he's a little soft from Mother Yasoda's butter. Another time there was a Sanskrit professor, and he was trying to impress Prabhupada. And he said, Swamiji, he said, is it Krishna? Is it Krishna? Is it Krishna? Prabhupada said, don't worry. He knows who's calling. You know, that the real thing is you call out with love. Then that's how you attract Krishna. It's not your, I mean, Sanskrit is nice and all of that, but that's not the essence of the thing. I was in Detroit, kind of bouncing around, but as I'm thinking of things. Evening darshan. And there was an Indian gentleman, and he said to Srila Prabhupada, Swamiji, can you read my palm? And Prabhupada explained, no, we don't do that. We simply depend, Yokesh mam bahamiham, you know, we simply depend on Krishna, and that's not our business. And Prabhupada gave such a nice answer, and the man missed it completely. He said, yes, Swamiji, but can you read my palm? And to everyone's amazement, Prabhupada said, give me your hand. And Prabhupada was expert at theatrics. Prabhupada turned on the little desk lamp on his desk, and Prabhupada took the man's hand, and he was, he was, you know, looking at all the lines and everything. We're thinking, geez, Prabhupada's reading palms. Yeah, I'm going to get in line. Maybe he'll read my palm, you know. And then after studying the man's hand very carefully, very seriously, Prabhupada said, all bad, birth, death, disease, and old age. And Prabhupada said it was so heavy, I thought the guy was going to have a heart attack. He was like, oh! And then Prabhupada got one of those blissful Vaikuntha smiles. And Prabhupada said, but you clap your hands at kirtan, and all the lines go away. And the man got it. That's the point, that you just surrender and become Krishna's devotee, and everything takes care of itself. When Prabhupada was in Los Angeles, when I was there, this is 1970, Prabhupada's garden, it didn't have that fountain and all that stuff in there. It was a grass lawn. And then it had a seat, a raised asan for Srila Prabhupada. And he used to meet all kinds of people, the mayor of Los Angeles and the head of the police department and professors from, UCLA, USC, Pepperdine, all kinds of, far out stuff. And they would come and meet Srila Prabhupada. So it's the gift shop now, but if you know LA, the garden was here, and then the Brahmacharya ashram was here. We were on the second floor. And if you leaned out the window, you could hear what Prabhupada was saying. So there was probably, 35 brahmacharis, and we would pack, because whenever, and almost every evening, late afternoon, Prabhupada would have some guests. So we were all hanging out of the window. We looked like a barrel of monkeys, You would lean out, and one brahmachari would hold the back of your dhoti. You could lean out, and then you'd rotate, and the other guy would hang out for 5 minutes, So yeah, all the windows were packed with brahmacharis leaning out the windows. And the temple commander, Karandar, told us one day, hey, Prabhupada's meeting all these dignitaries and important people, and you guys are hanging out the window like a bunch of, looks like a barrel of monkeys, and come on, you can't do that. Prabhupada, we're trying to, Prabhupada wants a dignified arena. So don't do it. So we were heartbroken, but it made sense. So we said, all right. So the next day, Prabhupada came out, sat down, looked up, no brahmacharis in the windows. He turned to Karandar and said, where are the brahmacharis? Go and get them. Prabhupada liked it. He liked it that we wanted to hear. We wanted to hear how Prabhupada was preaching, and Prabhupada didn't care. Prabhupada was a perfect gentleman, and we should always do things, it's the most important message in the world. It should have the best delivery system. We should be the most organized, the most together, the most cutting edge. We should be using all of the facilities of the material nature to deliver Krishna's message. Yes, but Prabhupada, but it's not that we lose that innocent taste of bhakti. Well, I'll say this, having disciples. I remember Rabindra Sarup Prabhu told me one time, he said, in those days, not only was Prabhupada the only pure devotee of Krishna, he was practically the only adult. We didn't know anything. We didn't know how to do anything. And I remember, this is in Detroit, and we heard that Prabhupada, they bathed Prabhupada's lotus feet in Los Angeles. So Prabhupada arrived, we thought, well, let's do the same thing. How blissful. So we got one of those kids swimming pools from Walmart, with the ducks on this. It was blue with pink ducks on it, We brought that out. We brought out some milk and, in a pitcher, and some Prabhupada could understand, oh, they're going to bathe my feet. All right. Prabhupada. So he put his feet out, and the temple president was just about to pour the milk. And Prabhupada said, oh, socks off. We were going to bathe Prabhupada's feet with his socks on, So, okay, that makes sense. Take the socks off. Okay, I'll note that for the future. And then the milk was right out of the fridge, And Prabhupada was a very sensitive person. We poured this ice cold milk, and Prabhupada pulled his feet back. Said, oh, warm the milk. Oh, that's a good idea. So it was amazing what Prabhupada put up with, Tamal Krishna Maharaj told me this. I wasn't here for this one. In the old LA temple, the temple that was on La Cienega, Prabhupada would give the Sunday feast lecture. And I'm actually trying to filter because I'm remembering so many stories. But Prabhupada would after the lecture, the devotees and the guests would all take prasadam, and Prabhupada would sit with, there were no sannyasis in those days, maybe Kirtanananda, but I don't even know if Kirtananda had taken sannyasi. So, but temple presidents would be visiting, and Vishnujan, So Prabhupada would sit with a group of senior devotees and take prasadam. And he'd take a little bit of prasadam off his plate and he'd distribute it to each of the devotees. So, maha prasadam. And Prabhupada took a bite out of a gulab jamun and he gave it to Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Prabhupada sitting here, Tamal is here, and a devotee named Jai Gopal was the third in line. Now, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, you can imagine, he's got a gulab jamun that Srila Prabhupada's personally taken a bite out of, maha prasadam. And he was just relishing it. And he was transferring, all young men, they used to eat, lots of prasadam. So he would move it from one plate, then he'd get a second plate and move it. So he was saving. And he transferred it to 3 different plates. And he told me he was looking at Srila Prabhupada. So he was looking this way. Jai Gopal was on this side, and Tamal was looking this way. And he said he was meditating on Prabhupada's ear. And he was thinking how Prabhupada's ear was like a transcendental radar dish for catching Shabda Brahman, spiritual sound vibration. And then he was thinking how Prabhupada, because Prabhupada, had all the symptoms of an exalted personality. And he was thinking how Prabhupada's ear was shaped just like Lord Buddha's ear. It's very beautiful. So while he was meditating on Prabhupada's ear, Jai Gopal reached over, grabbed the gulab jamun off his plate, and ate it. Now, we were a lot more passionate in those days. Tamal grabbed Jai Gopal and was going to whack him. But he had enough wherewithal. He said, Prabhupada, can I hit him? Can I hit him? Prabhupada said, what did he do? Prabhupada said, he stole my gulab jamun. Prabhupada said, Vaikuntha qualifications. Prabhupada said, there's 2 types of devotees. Devotees that distribute prasadam and devotees that steal prasadam. And Prabhupada said, they're both transcendental. Let's see. Here's another example in Detroit. Prabhupada was humility personified. So it was the Detroit airport, and devotees from everywhere east of the Mississippi were there. I mean, there was huge kirtan party, 5 or 6 madungas, 15 pairs of kartals, Vishnu John Maharaj leading kirtan, roaring right in the terminal, right in the airport, right? Prabhupada sitting in those little plastic chairs waiting for his, plane. And devotees are all offering full dandavats, sprinkling rose petal. I mean, we completely taken over the airport. Now, the thing is, it was in the morning commute time. And there were a lot of businessmen, they had to catch their flights. And you've got devotees, full dandavats offering the whole, so many prayers. And they couldn't step over the devotees. It was like a log jam. They couldn't get through. So they were ticked off. So the businessmen started pushing the devotees out of the way. And as I said, we were a lot more passionate in those days. Devotees started pushing back. You sinful rascal. You don't know this is a pure devotee of Krishna. So, and the thing was heating up. It was just somebody was going to haul off and whack somebody, and there was going to be a brawl right there in the airport. Definitely. So Rupanuga was the chairman of the GBC. Rupanuga stood on a chair and made an announcement. He said, all ISKCON devotees, please leave the terminal. Nobody moved. Everybody completely ignored the chairman of the GBC's announcement. The only person who moved? Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada got his little bag. He got up. I said, no, Prabhupada, you stay, But he was thinking, I'm an ISKCON devotee. My leader, one of my leaders is making an announcement. Prabhupada immediately complied, but us, so Prabhupada was very humble. But Prabhupada could be very heavy, you know. Prabhupada said one time, there was a devotee, this was in New Vrindavan, and, you know, we were all young men, and, you know, it was easy to follow the regular principles, at least at one point, and then we all got married, and it's not so easy, you know, passionate people. So the devotee was saying to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, you know, I took initiation, and I took these vows, but I didn't know how hard it was going to be. Here we are 5 years later, you know, and, you know, he was making the whole case, and we were sympathetic with him. And Prabhupada slammed his hand down. And Prabhupada said, then why did you promise? Prabhupada said, only an animal cannot keep his promise. And that was the end of that conversation. Prabhupada said, only an animal cannot keep his promise. So Prabhupada was, and then the devotee said, Prabhupada said, I'll forgive you once, I'll forgive you twice. Prabhupada said, the third time I take off my shoe. And the devotee said, oh, but Prabhupada, I thought the spiritual master was unlimitedly merciful. Prabhupada said, yes, but don't take advantage. So Prabhupada was heavy, you know. The Mukunda Maharaj told me this. Prabhupada was on a morning walk in Los Angeles, and some dog had passed stool on the lawn. You know, Prabhupada liked to spur our intelligence, you know, he liked to get us thinking, you know, he liked to challenge us. So Prabhupada said, swung his cane, where the dog had, you know, left his calling card there on the lawn. Prabhupada said, which side is better, wet side or dry side? You know, the dog stool, which side is better, wet side or dry side? And the devotees, you know, half of them were arguing for the wet side. You know, that makes better fertilizer. The other side were arguing for the dry side, that, well, that's easier to clean up. Prabhupada let it go on for a little while, and then Prabhupada just laughed. Prabhupada said, wet side or dry side, it's still stool. So Prabhupada said, you know, whatever we may be, a rich man or a demigod or a big this or that in this material world, it's still the material world. It's all relative, and it's all time and tide wait for no one, you know. So, you know, Prabhupada liked to make us think sometimes like that. Prabhupada tells the story about how to deal with people, because Prabhupada was expert, you know. And and I think it's from Padma Purana, but the the sun and the wind were arguing who was stronger. And so they thought, well, let's do a field study. And there was a man walking along on the earth. And so they said, well, let's see, he had a coat on. Let's see who can make him take his coat off. So the wind went first, and the wind began blowing icy cold wind. The man just pulled the coat tighter and tighter. Even the man fell over. He didn't take that coat off. Then the sun said, okay, my turn. And the sun, with the warm heat, the man immediately took the coat off. So Prabhupada said, you know, sometimes we have to correct people, and, you know, that's our job if we're responsible. But Prabhupada said we shouldn't pound on people. You know, if you pound on people and find all their faults, then they go internal, and they become, you know, repressed and paranoid and, you know. But if we try to see Prabhupada said, you find the spark and try to fan it. And if we deal with people like that, if we try to find the spark and fan it, then they open up. Because the material world is a tough place. And when they actually need a devotee, we don't care what they look like. We don't care how much money we don't, you know, Ambarish, Alfred Ford, we're off the track, but it's worthwhile. Ambarish, before he was initiated, his name was Alfred. Everybody called him Al. We had no idea who he was. And he didn't tell us who he was. And he would come, there was Gita class Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And he would come on Sundays too. But he'd come for the Gita class, you know? And he was Bhakta Al. Hey, Bhakta Al, could he help with this? Hey, Bhakta Al, could he? Hey, Bhakta Al, you know? And he loved it. He was completely happy with that. Just, you know, he was you know. And then one day, I was talking with the temple president. I was the treasurer. And, you know, so we were talking about, we needed to get storm windows. And storm windows, well, it happened like this. Okay, storm windows in those days, they would have saved us almost $2,000-3,000 a year, or even 4,000. You can figure inflation. This is early 70s. And but we had no money to put them. It was like they'd pay for themselves in 2 years, but to do it, it was like, I don't know what, $6,000, something like that. We had no money. So we were talking back and forth. It would save money, but where to get, So Bhakta Al said, "What are you talking about?" We thought he was a college student. He was a college student. And we thought, "Oh, Al, don't worry about it. Just, take prasadam. We need some storm windows, but we can't afford it." And he just, went over and sat down, took prasadam. A couple days later, a devotee came and got me, said, hey, there's some guy measuring the windows outside. So I went outside. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I've got an order here for storm windows." I said, "Well, whoa, we don't have any money. We can't pay." I said, "If it's a free demonstration, fine, but we don't have any money." He said, "No, it's prepaid." I said, "Prepaid?" I said, "Let me see the bill." And it said Alfred Ford. Now, Alfred Ford was like a big guy. It's like if I signed a bill, whatever his name is, President Biden. I mean, it'd just be a goof. No one would believe it, So he said, "Oh," I said, "Hey, listen, if you want to believe that Alfred Ford paid for this, fine, but we're not paying for it." So I told the temple later on that day, temple president was out when he came back. I said, hey, how about this, And he, he's smarter than me. He was thinking, Alfred, he said, "You don't think it's Bhakta Al?" I said, "No way." So he came the next evening and we said, "Are you Alfred Ford?" And he said, "Who wants to know?" And I said, we told him the story. And we said, "Why didn't you tell us?" He said, No. He said, "All my life, I've never known who my friends were. I didn't know if they were my friends because I could fly them all to Aspen, for the skiing in the winter, or I could fly them all to Florida, to our house in the Coral Gables, I never knew who my friends were." He said, "But the devotees, you didn't know who I was. You didn't know where I came from, and you didn't care. You just cared about me as spirit soul." He said, "I know that the devotees are my real friends." So that's Ambrish, how he came to the temple, Smart guy, very smart person. Krishna didn't give that money to a fool. I was talking about Prabhupada's humility. Rabindra Sarup told me this one. There was a professor, he was Indian at Temple University, but he was a Christian. And there's nice Christians, whatever, but this guy was a fanatic. So the first thing he said when he came to meet Prabhupada, right off the bat, he said, "I see that you're a Vaishnava, but your Krishna is a lecherous debauchee." Right off the bat, punched, Krishna and the gopis. And Prabhupada said, "I see that you're married." He said, "What the real question is, what are you doing with one of Krishna's gopis? Krishna is the only Purusha and everyone else is Prakriti. Krishna enjoys everyone. And the real question is that you think you're an enjoyer." So the conversation just heated up, and he was shocked. The Christian professor was shocked because he thought, well, I'll just slap around, verbally this simple sadhu, and he had his argument. And Prabhupada just spun him right around. So the guy became angry. He actually began shouting at Prabhupada. And Brahmananda said, "I think you better leave, sir," heave the guy out. But here's the most blissful part. So it was quite unnerving, and Rabindra was apologizing. "Oh, Prabhupada, I had no idea." Prabhupada didn't mind. So the devotees were talking, what will happen to him? He swore 4-letter words, at a pure devotee of Krishna. What will happen to this guy? And they were thinking like Ashwatthama will be wandering in the Himalayas. Will he have to drink boiling ghee? What's going to happen to him? And all the devotees offered their opinions of what hellish tapasya this man would have to perform to become redeemed. And everyone had offered their drastic solutions. It got to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, "Well, we could forgive him." Nobody thought of that. Nobody, but if you get the forgiveness of a Vaishnava, then you're relieved, So that was Prabhupada's nature, Prabhupada was very merciful, but he would fight for Krishna, There was a Monsignor That's right under a bishop. So he was a big guy. And Prabhupada in Detroit, right off, he came only because Leka Shravanti, he was a personal friend of Leka Shravanti's father. Leka Shravanti's father was Walter Reuther, the founder of the United Auto Workers. He was actually a good guy. He was actually a very good guy. And so anyway, he wanted to come, this priest wanted to come and see how his good friend's daughter had gotten mixed up in this weird cult, and he was going to try to save her, right? That was his vibe, and it was very clear. And right off the bat, across the street from the temple was a Christian school, and it was closed down because they didn't have enough students. So Prabhupada said, "You have this empty building. Why don't you give it to us? We can fill it up." The guy was shocked, we're not going to give you our building, So, and then he challenged Prabhupada. He said, that what are you doing for the handicapped? What are you doing for the poor? And, Prabhupada said that actually everyone's poor, that everyone, if they don't know God, they don't know Krishna, everyone's poor, whether you're rich or whether you're materially rich or, so Prabhupada was, answering it. And the guy kept drilling it, And Prabhupada quoted from the New Testament. He said, "Your Jesus says the poor will always be with us." Jesus is making the exact same point in the New Testament. I forget which one of the four Gospels, but he makes the exact same point that, he says, "My kingdom is not of this earth. I'm not here to solve your material problems. I'm here to help you develop love of God." But when Prabhupada quoted from the Christian, this priest, his own acharya, the guy was like, he was a little shocked, And over the course of things, Prabhupada kept plying him there was a nice, prasadam sandesh and some cookies. And Prabhupada said, take. And he kept, and the guy, you could see the turning point when he realized, wait a minute, to the man's credit, he realized, wait a minute, this is a genuinely saintly person. And, I should actually, I can learn something here. So he completely changed. He became quite respectful. And then he said to Prabhupada, he said, you have so many young people. He said, our church is full of old ladies. They're just, we don't get any young people. So Prabhupada said, noting that the man liked prasadam, Prabhupada said, "I understand you have one ceremony. You offer a dry wafer." Prabhupada's talking about communion. The blood and body of Christ. They offer some grape juice and a little dry wafer. So Prabhupada said, "I understand you offer one dry wafer." Prabhupada said, "You introduce these Bengali sweets, you'll have full attendance." Which is pretty blissful, And we were thinking, yeah, their process is so dry, and Krishna consciousness is like a juicy gulab jamun and rasgulla, it's so when the guy, and Prabhupada had given him his garland, Prabhupada gave him a Bhagavad Gita, and Prabhupada had the devotees box up some nice prasadam for him. And when he left, and when he was leaving, he turned and he bowed. And he said, he's got his box of prasadam and Bhagavad Gita and a garland, and it's just completely changed, turned around completely. And he said to Srila Prabhupada, "I feel like I become one of your disciples." It was really sweet. And then when the man had left, Prabhupada said, what is it? Vacha Vegam, Manasa Vegam, Krodha Vegam, that one who can control the senses can make disciples all over the world, is a Goswami, and can make disciples all over the earth. So because Prabhupada was, and I saw that many times. Here's another one. I just remembered it. Chicago. Oh, what's the time? Chicago, Pundarik's father. Pundarik's father was the editor of Playboy magazine. Playboy magazine was male pornography. It was naked women. It was they tried to perfume it. They'd have some interview with some, cultural figure, and they'd have some, fine wines, just fermented grape juice or whatever, So they tried to. Prabhupada said, he said, "You can take a dead rat and perfume it. It's still a dead rat." So but still. So the man came to meet. Here's what happened. In those days, it was a pretty, popular magazine. And I think it had a reading, circulation of like 6 million people. And it came out monthly. And one of the key features, trying to perfume the dead rat, was they had an interview. And you figure it was in the front of the magazine. And you figure 6 million people, are going to read this thing. And it was the year of the yoga, and it was a lot. Maharishi Mahesh. It was, the Beatles were, in India. So it was a whole thing. So Pundarik's father, the editor of Playboy magazine, agreed that he'd like to have Prabhupada to be the interview of the month. So he came to see Srila Prabhupada in Chicago. Now, nobody had told Prabhupada what kind of magazine it was. But, Prabhupada was a transcendental Sherlock Holmes. He didn't miss a thing. If you remind me, I'll tell you another story about Prabhupada as Sherlock Holmes. As a detective, Prabhupada didn't miss a thing. So when the man came, Prabhupada, they told Prabhupada, oh, the circulation is 6 million people. And then, Prabhupada said, oh, very interesting. Prabhupada said, what kind of magazine is it? And they said, well, Prabhupada, it's a men's entertainment magazine. And you could tell that Prabhupada he wasn't really, I'm doing a class here. He wasn't really satisfied with that answer, Somebody's at my door. What's up, Prabhupada? Do you need something? All right. So Prabhupada said, what kind of magazine? They said, it's a men's magazine. Well, Prabhupada said, what kind of men's magazine? They said, well, Prabhupada, it's photography. Prabhupada said, what kind of photography? The temple president was starting to sweat. He knew this is not going to end well. So he said, what kind of, They said, photographs of women. Prabhupada said, what kind of photographs of women? And the temple president said, photographs of women in various states of undress. That's how he tried to present. And Prabhupada said, well, we can't be in this kind of magazine. Prabhupada said, no, we're not, we can't, And here's the far out part. Prabhupada turned to Pundarik's father. And he said, you seem like a gentleman. You're well educated. He, has a PhD from Columbia, the best journalism school in America. Prabhupada said, you're an educated man. Why are you working for such a magazine? And it just, the way Prabhupada said it, it just went right into the guy's heart. And he just opened up. He said, I know. He said, I'm just wasting my time. And Prabhupada said, you should get another job. And it turns out a few months later, he became the editor of the New York Times Sunday magazine. He got a good job, on Prabhupada's words, Prabhupada's encouragement, he quit, So it was just, I saw that a number of times that they could sense. I mean, Prabhupada could get very heavy. Like people say, this is just brainwashing. Prabhupada would say, if the brain is dirty, shouldn't we wash it? And then Prabhupada would say, actually, get a brain, then we'll wash it. And the man said, well, I've got a brain. Prabhupada said, if you've got a brain, it's cow dung. I mean, that's pretty heavy. And I don't know, And Prabhupada would just but because there was no pride, there was no arrogance, and people could sense that Prabhupada actually cared about them. And they would just open up. I saw it so many times. I saw people just, just open up and pour out their heart to Prabhupada. Prabhupada's on a morning walk. This was in Mayapur. I was on this one. And there was an Indian gentleman. He was a businessman. And he kept going on and on and on. He said, oh, I have the biggest glass factory in Bengal, and I have the biggest glass factory in Bihar, and I have 3 glass factories in Gujarat. He kept going on and on. Glass factory, glass factory, glass factory. And Prabhupada was just, being polite, but the man couldn't move on. He couldn't hear anything. So Prabhupada said, where do you get the coal for burning your furnaces? And the man was pious. So he said, oh, from Bhagavan. Prabhupada said, where do you get the sand? Oh, from Bhagavan. Where do you get the silica? Oh, from Bhagavan. So Prabhupada said, Bhagavan's coal, Bhagavan's silica, Bhagavan's sand, you are simply a thief. And the guy was shocked, So he kind of was recovering, and he kind of fell to the back of the line. Then after about 5 minutes, he recovered. And he came back up and he said to Prabhupada, he said, but I give charitable donations. I give charitable donations. Prabhupada said, okay, you're a little thief. Prabhupada gave him an inch, but not more than that. He said, okay, you're a little thief, you know. So Prabhupada, Jayapataka Maharaj told me this. You know, Prabhupada's room, if you've been to Mayapur, Prabhupada's room is in the Lotus building, second floor. And in back of the Lotus building, you know, it was all wide open. There was nothing there in those days. And there was a pit. And that's the devotees after they took prasadam, but they would throw all their leaf plates and clay cups and things like that, you know. And there was an old lady and a couple kids and some dogs. And they were all so hungry that they were picking through the leaf plates, hoping to find maybe a little khichdi stuffed something or a little doll left in a cup or something like that, you know. Prabhupada was looking at them. And Jayapataka Maharaj came up, saw what Prabhupada was looking, and Jayapataka Maharaj said to Prabhupada, he said, Prabhupada, I feel so sorry for these people. Sometimes, he said, sometimes I feel so sorry for these people. And he said, Prabhupada gave him the deepest look with tears in his eyes. And Prabhupada said, why just sometimes? You follow? And it's described that some people's hearts are steel frame. Some people's hearts are like butter. When there's heat, they melt. But a pure devotee's heart is like nectar. You know, it's always flowing. I'll just say a few more things and then we'll end. You know, Prabhupada, he was very serious and he could be so heavy. I'll give you an example, a personal example. Prabhupada was on a walk. This is Lakeshore Park in Chicago. And I know a little bit about gardening, not much, but I know a little bit. So Prabhupada swung his cane, said, what is this, fruit or flower? I said, Prabhupada, that's azalea. It's a nice flower, but has no fragrance. Prabhupada said, a flower without fragrance is like a handsome person with no good qualities. Prabhupada walked a little further. What is this? Swung his cane. I said, oh, Prabhupada, it's holly. They use it for decoration and the birds eat the berries, but you know. Then Prabhupada went a little further, said, what is this? I said, oh, Prabhupada, that's useless. You know, it was a weed. Prabhupada said, no, you're useless. He said, Krishna doesn't waste. Every plant has a purpose. It's a fiber, or it's medicinal, or it's food, or, you know, it's fuel. Krishna doesn't waste. Everything has a purpose. Now, fool that I am, I didn't know the purpose. It wasn't the plant's fault. So the plant wasn't useless. I was useless. The Prabhupada could be very heavy, you know. It was good, you know. That's the job of a teacher, to correct the child. So, on the other hand, Prabhupada, I'll tell two Prabhupada jokes, one story, and we'll be done. You know, Prabhupada liked a good joke. You know, at the right time, in the right place, Prabhupada liked a good joke. And if you listen to Prabhupada's tapes, and you should definitely, you know, you got to listen to Prabhupada's lectures, because you'll learn how to preach. You'll learn what is Krishna consciousness, and it's just so much fun. You know, Prabhupada, I was thinking someday just to make a tape, if I ever had the spare time, but Prabhupada's sound effects. He's a garbage truck, he's barking dogs, he's crows. You listen to Prabhupada's tapes, Prabhupada does all these sound effects. It's really blissful, you know? And Prabhupada is a young man, and, you know, now everybody watches, Bollywood, whatever it is on the computer or cable, you know. But Prabhupada, as a householder, sometimes he would go to the court and he would listen to the court. And if you listen to Prabhupada's lectures, quite often he'll quote different, like there was a man who, I don't want to take up too much time because I want to say some other things, but it's really great. Prabhupada knew how to tell a good anecdote. And he peppered his talks with all kinds of sound effects and jokes. So here's a joke. One of the first jokes I heard Prabhupada tell. Prabhupada said, and Prabhupada was making the point that what do they actually know? They don't. The real problems are birth, death, disease, and old age. They don't know what to do about that. The real problems are the three modes of material nature. They don't know what to do about that. So what they really know is a little section. We have a guy here. He's very nice. Rupa Manohar is his name, Dr. Chada. And he studies crystals. He studies a particular type of crystal, and he studies how lasers, particular types of lasers, go through a particular crystal. I mean, he's talk about it, section of a section of a section of a section, So Prabhupada's joke about, what is the use? They don't really know the big issues. So there was a man riding on a train in India with his friend. And I don't know if you guys, some of you, if you're old enough, remember, there used to be coal burning trains in India. And they used to pump out that black soot, everything, So these two men were in a compartment close to the engine. It's hot, no AC, typical thing. So they opened the window to get some fresh air, and a cinder from the coal went right in the guy's eye. You get something in your eye, it's very painful. So the guy couldn't see, he was in a lot of pain. His friend went looking for a doctor. And he went through all the different bogies, all the different compartments, and he couldn't find a doctor, couldn't find it. Finally, he got to the last compartment. There was a whole group of doctors going to a medical convention. This one was, an oncologist. This one was a heart specialist. This one was, whatever it is, endocrinology. This one, Finally, amongst all the doctors, he found an ophthalmologist, an eye doctor. So he brought the eye doctor up. He looked at the guy's cinder in his eye and said, I can't help you. It's in the left eye. I'm a right eye specialist. That was Prabhupada's joke. Prabhupada's joke about yes, no, very good? Okay, I'll tell it quickly. I know Bhagavad Gita, I know Krishna, but a superficial understanding is going to, most people have a very superficial understanding, and they don't get the benefit, and they get themselves in trouble. So Prabhupada said, to make his point, Prabhupada said, a man was going to a foreign country and he didn't speak the language. His friend said, don't worry, you just learn a few words. You just learn to say yes, no, very good. Yes, no, very good. It'll all work out. And if you've ever been in a foreign country where you can't speak the language, you can get a lot done with yes, no, very good. You point, yes, no, yeah, very good, you can get a lot of mileage. So everything was going fine. Yes, no, very good. Yes, no, very good. Everything was okay. One day he's out in front of a bank. Some robbers robbed the bank. Robbers got away. Police showed up. Our friend is standing there. Police say, did you rob the bank? He has no idea what they said. He says, yes. Police said, well, give the money back. He didn't know what they say. He said, no. They said, then you're going to jail. And our friend said, very good. And off he went to jail. That's Prabhupada's joke. So I'll just say this. Maybe there's so many things I could say, but I'll say one and then we'll end. Prabhupada tells the story about Lord Gladstone. Lord Gladstone was a long-standing prime minister of Queen Victoria. And in those days, London really was the capital of the world. Hail Britannia, Britannia rule the waves. London was where England was the, So Lord Gladstone, he was in his office, his secretary was there, and the prime minister and the ambassador from America showed up, said, I want to see the prime minister. Said, no, he's very busy. He doesn't have time. You wait. He'll be ready in a little while. You wait. So the American ambassador sits down. The ambassador from Germany shows up. Oh, I've got to meet, So he's busy. You just grab a seat, The head of the Bank of London shows up. Says, I got to see the prime minister. Oh, you just wait, you wait. So after a while, the whole room filled up. Head of the Bank of London, all the important ambassadors, all the home minister, everybody's waiting. They thought, geez, we're the who's who of London, of the British Empire. Maybe he's talking to Queen Victoria. Who's he talking to in there? So one of them just pushed the door open a little bit and peeked in. This Prabhupada tells the story. And Lord Gladstone was on all fours, and his little grandson was on his back, and his grandson was riding him like a horse. Go left, go right, go left, go right. And Lord Gladstone was having a great time. And Prabhupada said that actually, this is how Krishna becomes captured. Krishna is captured by sweet, innocent love. I mean, we want to study the Shastra, we want to practice austerities, all of that. Yeah, all well and good. Vairagya, Yukta Vairagya, and all of that, and they're all important. But ultimately, it's that simple love that captures Krishna. Do you know, Prabhupada said, what the difference between Lord Narayan, Lord Vishnu, and Krishna is? I'll tell you, I just thought of another one. So anyway, Prabhupada said, someone asked him, what's the difference between Vishnu and Narayan? Prabhupada said, actually, they're just the Supreme Lord acting in different capacities. But Krishna's Tu Bhagavan Swayam. But he said, the difference is Vishnu is God at the office and Krishna is God at home. Vishnu is God at the office and Krishna is God at home, People would ask Prabhupada all the time, can you see God? Can you see God? And Prabhupada would answer in different ways. Prabhupada would say, that's not the question. The question is, why can't you see God? The mystic power of God is everywhere. So why can't you see God? Sometimes Prabhupada would say, God is not cheap. You have to have the eyes anointed with the pulp of love to see God. I can't say, show me, where's Joe Biden? I want to see. Who am I to see Joe Biden? So we think, oh, show me God. So Prabhupada would answer in different ways. But Malati Devi told me this something. Prabhupada's sitting here, Bhaktivedanta Manor. Radha Gokulananda are here at the other end of the temple room. So that Radha Gokulananda are here, and Prabhupada's sitting here in his Vyasasana. And a man stands up in the middle. Prabhupada's here, the deities are here, and the man stands up in the middle. And he says, can you see God? Can you see God? Prabhupada said, yes, but you're standing in the way. Sit down. The guy was completely, what do? You just have to sit down. You're just completely defeated. And you realize I was a fool, So anyway, we'll do this some other time. But I wanted to tell one last thing. Because we should appreciate, as I was saying in the beginning, we should not just be taking. We are getting so much mercy, so much relief, so much transcendental happiness, so much, a positive life. We wake up in the morning and we can remember Krishna. We have service to Krishna. We are blessed in so many ways. They're eating bones and feathers and, we take nice Krishna prasadam, and we're just blessed in so many ways, So, Achyutananda told me this. A man named Tarun Kanti Ghosh, he was a big life member. His grandfather was a disciple of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So he came in a Vaishnav line. He owned a bunch of local newspapers all over India. So he was a big guy on one hand. And he'd been to see a yogi. And the yogi, by mystic siddhi, zoop, had made a beautiful German apple. And Tarun Kanti Ghosh just couldn't get beyond it. He said, he was just wearing a gamsha and he, nothing up his sleeve. There's no sleight of hand. There was no apple. He made an apple, no apple. And Prabhupada was trying to preach to him, but he just, couldn't get through to him. So in his role as a preacher, as a teacher, Prabhupada said, I came to America with nothing. Prabhupada said, all I had was the faith in the order of my Guru Maharaj and in the holy name. I sat down and I started chanting with a pair of kartals. And then Prabhupada said, and so many devotees came. And so many deities came. So many Ratha Yatras, so many festivals, so many books all over the world. There's every country, north, south, all, And then Prabhupada said, and so many temples came. And then Prabhupada said, and in every temple, there are so many apples. Apple halva, apple chutney, apple fruit salad. So this yogi made one apple. Okay, but what about Prabhupada opening temples and deities and devotees all over the world? Now that's mystical. That is something impressive. You make an apple, okay, fine, big deal. So we should remember how fortunate we are to be members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness and Prabhupada Nugas. I'll say one other thing. I'm not going Ritik on you. Don't worry. If we want to know Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what book do we read? What is the best, Prabhupada recommends PhD. What book do we read?
Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Chaitanya Charitamrita, exactly. Now, who was Chaitanya Charitamrita written by? Krishnadas Kaviraj. Now, was Krishnadas Kaviraj a direct disciple of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? No, he was a disciple of Raghunath Das Goswami. So, to understand the deepest essence of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his teachings, we go to a grand disciple. We go to Krishnadas Kaviraj. My point is that Prabhupada is open to all of you. When we had the first big Christmas marathon, huge. And Ramaswamy, got all the scores rolling across America, the different time zones. It was 10 o'clock on the East Coast, then it was 10 o'clock in the Midwest, 10 p.m., then it was 10 p.m. And he compiled all the scores and brought them to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada was in ecstasy. And Prabhupada wrote a letter to the devotees. And Prabhupada said, my Guru Maharaj is pouring his blessings down on you. He said, the grandfather is more merciful than the father. Now, I'm wearing glasses. Now, you could say, what is it? Jiva Goswami says there's the seen, the seer, and the act of seeing. So there's the seer, the seen, and the act of seeing. Now, you could say my glasses, they are in between. They're blocked. My experience is not direct. I'm seeing through the glasses. So, but the glasses actually enhance my vision. They allow me to see. They don't block. They don't intercede. They actually enhance. So we all need to be initiated by a bona fide spiritual master personally present before us to train us and guide us. And they're like the glasses, but it doesn't mean that we can't also have by the mercy of our spiritual master, of your spiritual master, you can have an intimate, deep, personal relationship with Srila Prabhupada. So you are all, I'll be dead and gone. I'm not going to be around that much longer. Who's going to carry it on? It's going to fall on you. So you get that great opportunity to help spread Krishna consciousness. And I'll go, but I've heard very nice things about the Austin community, that you're very enlivened and enthusiastic. All right, Prabhus.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. So would you like to take some questions?
Let's take 3 questions.
3 questions, okay. Devotees, please unmute and ask Maharaj question directly. Or you can type it in the chat window. I can read it out to Maharaj. Pushpanjali Mataji.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for the talk on Srila Prabhupada. I was just remembering one disciple, Srila Prabhupada told one disciple that Krishna consciousness is very simple. You will miss it. I want to know, Maharaj, what is your take on that? What did Srila Prabhupada mean by that?
I missed the lesson. Krishna consciousness is very simple. Then what's the next part?
He said you will miss it.
I don't remember Prabhupada saying that, but I remember this. Prabhupada said, touch your nose. So Pushpanjali Mataji, touch your nose. No. Prabhupada said, you have to touch your nose like this. We make everything so complicated, Man manabhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mami vaishashi satyamte pratijana priyosime. We just speak apatram pushpam palam toyam. We just, whatever you got, you offer to Krishna. It's simple, Prabhupada told me, Prabhupada said, one of the first things Prabhupada told me, he said, Krishna consciousness is like sitting on a fence. Okay, picture a fence, and you're sitting here. Prabhupada said, if you lean this way, what will happen? You'll fall that way. If you lean this way, what will happen? You'll fall that way. So Prabhupada said the Jiva soul is marginal potency, and we have free will. And if we lean towards Maya, Maya will pull us. And if we lean towards Krishna, Krishna will pull us. So all we have to do is lean towards Krishna. Whatever. Badrinarayan Maharaj, my good friend, he's passed away. But there was this guy, as Prabhupada would say, not quite in order, but he used to try to live in the temple and eat blue. The problem was he was an alcoholic and he just couldn't give it up. And he'd move into the temple, then he'd fall off the wagon, and then, and then he'd get himself together and move back. So we met him in the park, in Balboa Park one time. And he was completely disheveled. He had leaves in his hair and his clothes were all, he hadn't bathed, he smelled like alcohol. And Badrinarayan Maharaj said, Irving, you've got to stop drinking. It's killing you. He said, I can't do it. I can't do it. Badrinarayan Maharaj said, you've got to at least bathe. You've got to, no, I can't do that. Badrinarayan Maharaj said, so many, can you do? No, I can't do that. You got to stop smoking. He was coughing and hacking. You got to stop smoking. No, I can't do that. So Badrinarayan Maharaj said, where are you living? And he was living in the women's bathroom of the park. So Badrinarayan Maharaj told him, at least move into the men's bathroom, And Irving said, oh, I could do that. He could do that much. He could do. He could move from the women's bathroom because he was a man, don't sleep in the women's bathroom. So, I mean, that's an extreme example. But Prabhupada told me personally, he said, Yeyatamam prapadyante, that, you take Krishna, as we surrender, Krishna reciprocates, the verse. But Prabhupada said it's not a 1-to-1 ratio. Krishna will respond. We take one step to Krishna. Krishna will take 10 to us. So, so many things are simultaneously one and different. Prabhupada told me personally. Prabhupada said, intelligence is the ability to balance opposing points within the mind. It's pretty profound, actually. One of the signs of intelligence is the ability to balance opposing points within the mind. Things are not black or white. They're not all binary. They're not either or. So on one hand, we should feel fallen. We should feel meek and humble. Yes, we should feel like that. And simultaneously, was it utsaha nishchaya daryat? We should be enthusiastic. We should feel confident. We should know that, if I'm practicing Krishna conscious, I'm going to become Krishna conscious by the grace of Krishna. So we should feel meek and humble. We should feel fallen. We should never feel, oh, I'm a big devotee or this or that, But we should also have that confidence that I chant my japa nicely. I serve the Vaishnavas. I was in a darshan. Prabhupada said you chant 16 rounds, follow the 4 regulative principles, serve Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, and serve the Vaishnavas, and you will see Krishna face to face in this life. And Jayadvaita Swami said, Prabhupada, in this life? Prabhupada said, in this life, why not? So that's the potency, we should be confident and meek and humble at the same time. So I take it from that. The Krishna consciousness is simple, and we make it so complicated. Just serve the Vaishnavas, take prasadam, be happy, Okay, one more question, 2 more questions. We'll be quick. What's another question? A good question, by the way.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Guru Maharaj Prabhupada. Maharaj, you mentioned about not having a lot of funds in the initial days and struggling with.
We had no money, Prabhu. We had not much. We had nothing.
Right. So we would like to see how the various strategies, things, how you all did the fundraising and for the temples, and how we can apply in the modern current life.
Well, the fact of the matter is, Prabhupada said this movement is going on by the mercy of Krishna alone. We use, it's something that many religious groups go through. They start off begging on the street. Then they develop in different ways, then eventually they develop a congregation, and the congregation donates, and eventually they have investments. I mean, there's a whole, the Catholic Church didn't get to where it is overnight, and I'm talking materially. Spiritually, they're scratch, So, but the truth of the matter is that we are going on by the mercy of Krishna alone. We use our intelligence. There's all kinds of, you can learn from Kalakanta. You can learn, I mean, we've got devotees that are expert at fundraising. You can learn from Devaki Nandana, the Devaki Nanda in Jaipur, in Rajasthan. So we've got devotees. You can learn from those devotees. What is his name? Madhu in New Jersey. He's a really nice devotee. So there's, we can learn, strategies, and you can learn from Koladri. Koladri Prabhu is expert at, I mean, he brings in a ton of money for New Vrindavan, and it's all by cultivating people by mail, and there's a whole formula, but you get, 6 gifts for every ask, I mean, there's a whole science to the thing. But ultimately, it's not the material formula that does it. What does it is if we're Krishna conscious, if we actually care about people, and if we take good care of our congregation, if we have good training programs, disciple training course, if we have, and there's so many good courses out there. If a rising tide lifts all boats, if we take good care of our congregation and give them Krishna consciousness, if we set a good example, and if we minister to them, we give them nice nice temple, nice festivals, and teach them how to, we have japa retreats. There's so many fun things you can do, and, they say, if you ask people for money, you'll get advice. If you ask them for advice, you'll get money. So there's all kinds of different formulas, but the ultimate, the protum and otum, that which holds the whole thing together, is that we are Krishna conscious, and that doesn't mean something big and flashy. We're just a genuine devotee. We're just, we're trying to spread Krishna consciousness and become Krishna conscious and take care of our congregation, and they will give you money. You don't know how it's going to happen. Somebody will just walk up. I mean, we have campaigns that are, we have all our different targets and plans and, all of that. But in the ultimate issue, this movement is going on by the grace of Krishna alone. If you have Krishna, you automatically have the goddess of fortune. And if you chase after the goddess of fortune, she's chanchala, she's flickering, Is that okay?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you very much.
It's the truth. I'm telling you, it's the truth. It doesn't mean simultaneous, like I was saying, balancing different opposing points within the mind. It doesn't mean we don't plan. It doesn't mean we don't have strategies. It doesn't mean we don't have fundraising targets. It doesn't mean we don't, the main reason people don't give money? Nobody's asked them, And, so, if we make a relationship with somebody, we have an attractive project, and 20% of your, 80% of your donations, this is like universal, Catholics, Jewish, Hare Krishna. If you're building a temple or a big project, 80% is going to come from 20% of the people. And then 20% is going to come from 80%. And you want to get that 80% from the 20% first. You want to get your big donors first. I mean, there's all kinds, but simultaneously, in the ultimate issue, it's that we've pleased Krishna and we've taken good care of our congregation. They will naturally want to help. Okay, one more question, then I got to go. If we don't have one more, I can go now.
So, Maharaj, we would like to give you an official thank you note, Abhay Prabhu. If just
can I bail out on that? I mean, I appreciate it, but please accept. I am very grateful for all that you're doing there in Austin. that you're a nice community and you're preaching very nicely. And you can bless me that may I become a humble and austere sannyasi. So you can give me those blessings. Can we end now and not get into a whole...
Sure, Maharaj. We need your blessings. Jasubhadra, you want to say, Maharaj?
Thank you very much, Maharaj, for giving your precious time. We know how busy you are, and enriching us with Srila Prabhupada's past.
Thank you for the invitation. We'll have to do it again sometime. I've got more.
Yes, Maharaj. We need your blessings, and we will reach out to you. And
But I'll tell you something about blessings.
okay.
Malati Devi told me that there was a Prabhupada was coming out of a Pandal tent in South India, Pandal program. And a man fell down Dandavats and grabbed Prabhupada's feet. And the man said, "Oh, Swami, Swami, save me, save me." Prabhupada said, "I can save you, but you must do the work. I can save you, but you must do the work." And Prabhupada gives the example, if we fall in a blind well, suppose you fall in a well, okay, I need a ladder or a rope to get out, isn't it? That's essential. But is it sufficient? I lower the rope into the well, I lower the ladder into the well, okay, but what also needs to happen?
I need to climb up.
You need to climb up.
Effort.
You need to take the initiative and grab on. So blessings, sure. But you know, Krishna consciousness doesn't happen by osmosis. We have to do the work. You know, we have to take it up seriously. Okay. All glories to Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Prabhupada. Thanks for the invitation. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hare
Maharaj.
Krishna.
Thank you, Hare
Holiness Badrinarayan Maharaj ki
Jai.
jai. The Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna devotees. We are going to make do